Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many faces here in the audience, and for those online, thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to our latest edition of the Argonne OutLoud Public Lecture Series. My name is Megan Clifford, and I serve as the Associate Laboratory Director of Science and Technology Partnerships and Outreach here at Argonne. Tonight, we are spotlighting Argonne's renowned entrepreneurship program, Chain Reaction Innovations. Before we dive into tonight's program, I want to share a few housekeeping notes for those of you here in the room and for the hundreds who are tuned in online. For our virtual audience, when you joined, your camera and mic were automatically turned off. If you experience volume issues, please make sure to unmute the audio and use the volume bar on the Vimeo screen. If you'd like to use closed captioning, there is a button you can select on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Captioning is not always perfect, especially with some scientific terms, so please bear with it. If you are having any trouble, please send an email to outloud@anl.gov, and we will help troubleshoot. For our in-person audience, we are recording the event, so by participating, you are consenting to be recorded. The recording will be available on Argonne's YouTube channel within a week. In case of an emergency that would require us to exit this building, behind me you can see a diagram of the multiple emergency exits from this room. In case of an emergency weather event that would require us to leave this room and proceed to weather shelters, behind me you can see a diagram of the path we would take. Argonne staff are prepared to direct you to these shelters if needed. If you become aware of an emergency situation, alert members of the Argonne staff who are here or call 630-252-1911 from your cell phone. Lastly, whether you are in person or online, we operate under Argonne's Code of Conduct. Argonne's core values of impact, safety, integrity, respect, and teamwork define who we are, guide our decision-making, and govern how we act as an Argonne communities of employees, collaborators, users, students, vendors, and visitors. We are committed to creating and sustaining a psychologically safe and welcoming environment. It is expected that we treat each other with respect, professionalism, and civility. So thank you for participating. Without further ado, I'd like to invite to the stage Sean Jones, Chief Research Officer and Deputy Laboratory Director for Science and Technology here at Argonne. Sean.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome again, everyone, to our Out Loud Public Lecture Series. Thank you for those who are joining us here in person as well as those virtually. We're thrilled to have so many of you with us here tonight. I'm Sean Jones, and I have the honor of serving as the Chief Research Officer and the Deputy Lab Director for Science and Technology here at Argonne National Laboratory. We do a lot at Argonne, and the Out Loud series is one of my favorite things that we do here at the lab. It is a direct connection to our community and a time when we can both educate and we can hopefully inspire. There's a natural connection between science, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Science seeks truth. Innovation applies it, and entrepreneurship brings it to the world. And our lab brings all three of these things together. At Argonne, we like to say we're forging the future. That includes supporting entrepreneurs who are developing transformative technologies. And here's what makes it even more exciting. It's all happening right here in our community, right here in the Midwest. Tonight, you'll meet some of these remarkable individuals, innovators working on big, bold ideas. With us, we have Dick Coe, Director of Chain Reaction Innovations, what we call CRI, which is Argonne's lab-embedded entrepreneurship program. We also have two of our CRI innovators, Laura Stoy Chief Executive Officer and founder of Rivalia Chemical Company, and Sean Sullivan, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of memQ. Now, let's talk first about the area that you will explore tonight from Laura, which is critical minerals. Now, you may have heard of this term recently because it's been in the news quite a bit. Critical minerals, especially rare earth elements like neodymium and yttrium, are difficult to bring into our country from overseas, but they are essential for building things like electric vehicles, wind turbines, and smartphones. Today, the U.S. currently does not have a secure access to rare earths and depends heavily on importing these minerals from other countries. Argonne is working to change that. To help address this problem, we partner the CRI entrepreneurs with Argonne researchers, and together leverage our world-class material science and chemistry expertise at cutting-edge facilities. Laura worked in Argonne's materials engineering research facility and is developing a patent-pending method to recover rare earth elements from industrial waste like coal ash, a byproduct of electricity generation. She partnered with Argonne's Chris Pupek to advance this work, and she'll tell you more about this story shortly. Another topic you'll hear about tonight is quantum. Quantum science explores how matter and energy behave at the smallest possible scale. Quantum is giving rise to technologies that could redefine secure communication, ultra-fast computing, and next-generation discovery of new materials. As quantum technologies advance, they will have transformative impacts across numerous industries, including healthcare, energy, finance, and cybersecurity. Argonne is home to leading quantum experts in several dynamic partnerships that are advancing quantum technology. Aided by these resources, and in partnership with Argonne researchers like Joe Heermans, Sean Sullivan is building quantum hardware that will power the future. He will be our last speaker tonight, kind of rounding out our panel. So, tonight you'll hear from entrepreneurs who are creating market disruption, helping to generate job creation and economic growth, and most importantly, create scientific solutions that benefit our society and benefit our daily lives. With great appreciation, and we greatly appreciate Dick, Laura, and Sean for sharing their work with us this evening. At Argonne, we are honored to accelerate science and technology that drive U.S. prosperity and security. And CRI entrepreneurs like Laura and Sean are vital to that mission. As the talks unfold, we hope that you'll engage. We hope that you'll ask lots of questions. Thank you again for joining us this evening and supporting science and the people that are behind it. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dick Coe. Dick, over to you.
John. Good evening, everyone. How are you? Can I see a show of hands of people who've been to an OutLoud lecture before? Oh, welcome back. This is exciting. So you know, this is really a window into the amazing science that we do here at Argonne. And today, I'm excited to showcase Chain Reaction Innovations, CRI, the entrepreneurship program here. You'll see how innovation and science can come together, and it's really a privilege and honor for me to serve as CRI Director. So I'm Dick Coe, CRI Director, and I'm excited to tell you about how we put this program together and how we work with our innovators. So, and you'll hear me say CRI throughout the presentation for Chain Reaction Innovations. We do many things, but we can put them into 3 buckets. Each year, we bring in annual cohorts in priority industries for Department of Energy, DOE, and Argonne. You hear about recycling rare earth elements to quantum technologies today, but we cover a wide-ranging field of technologies that are critical to our nation's prosperity and security. And we offer these innovators a 2-year fellowship to develop their technologies and business. Many of our innovators invented something while in graduate school, and this is an opportunity for them to turn this into reality, to start a business, to build that infrastructure around them. And we provide them with the training and also the mentorship. And we also provide our innovators research funding to de-risk those technologies here at Argonne. So many of you have heard the stories from our scientists here at Argonne, the types of research they do, and we are able to open Argonne's door to these innovators. So a little bit about my journey, and I think hopefully at the end of this slide you'll understand why I love my job so much. I was a researcher. I actually started here at Argonne 16 years ago as a postdoc at the Center for Nanoscale Materials. If I were wearing my badge, you can see the 5-digit number, my ID, and I'm proud of that. Right? I really started here at a time in my career where I was learning, and I later on was a faculty member at Northwestern, and I became what I call an intrapreneur. I wanted to start something. I was a chemistry professor. I'm a chemical physicist by training, but I got intrigued by construction. So I convinced the universities to support a team of undergraduates to build a house. You can see in the photo there from Northwestern's website where we built a full-size house in Evanston, Illinois, shipped it to Denver. And that's really the beginning of my learning on how to be an entrepreneur. And it started as an intrapreneur. I started advising startups in the carbon catalysis space. I was intrigued by many of what my graduate students were bringing forth on how do we turn waste into value. And then in 2018, 2019, I took the leap. I left academia altogether and became an entrepreneur. I launched a construction firm, taking technologies that we developed when I led that project. And now I have the privilege to be a mentor to many of our CRI innovators. And that's really where things become really fun for me. But my core belief is that science is the bedrock on which transformative technologies are built. I just cannot imagine that all the technologies we need for a prosperous and equitable and sustainable future, we have all the science that we have already. We need to continue to push those frontiers. And I compare that to the river of innovation. And I think that, for me, there are two tributaries for this river of innovation. There's basic science and translational R&D. And where the tributaries meet is turbulent and messy. But just like actual confluences, that's where life thrives. And at CRI, we bring innovation and science together, and we have a dedicated team at CRI to help our innovators connect with the amazing science, but also with the amazing ecosystem that we have here in Chicago. And we turn that into impact. And you see that impact on the next slide. It'll be a video where I also have the real privilege of sharing the good news to our innovators when they get accepted into the program. So congratulations, you have been selected to join CRI's cohort.
Yay!
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Well, that's really exciting. Yeah, thank you.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm just really excited. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have to celebrate.
I'm very excited to join.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It's huge.
I love that video because it reminds me every time I watch it that Argonne science can transform lives. Not just the lives of these 5 innovators, but also what their technologies can go on to do to make this nation more prosperous and more secure. And over the 8 years that we've been running the program, these are the 44 innovators that we've supported. And today you will hear from 2 of them. And I encourage you to visit our website to learn more about the other 42 innovators that we've supported over the years. And that comes back to what I'll close on, is our mission statement here at CRI, is to open Argonne's door to the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. We really believe that this messy confluence where science and innovation and translational R&D come together is where, not just where life thrives, but where the magic happens. So I hope you'll enjoy the 2 presentations later this evening, and I'll come back on stage a little bit later to moderate a panel and to take questions from the audience. But before I turn it over to Dr. Stoy, I want to remind everyone that The presentations you will hear today reflect the views and perspectives of the CRI innovators and do not reflect the opinions of CRI, Argonne National Laboratory, or the United States Department of Energy. So with that, I want to welcome Dr. Laura Stoy, CEO and founder of Rivalia Chemical Company, to the stage.
Beautiful. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, and welcome to this another Out Loud lecture. It looks like a lot of you attend every time, so I'm very excited to maybe make this a practice for myself as well. But anyways, I'm excited to share my journey of entrepreneurship with you. So I actually grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, family business. My brother is a startup founder, cousins, close friends. I actually very much believe that you are more likely to start a business if someone close to you has also done this. You know, oh, this person is like me, I can do that too. But I was first bit by the entrepreneurship bug in graduate school. So while I was working in the lab by day and by night, I was also, I founded a software company, Rocket Judge. This didn't come out of any of my research in the lab, but came out of a lot of volunteer work I was doing at the time. I was helping a lot of undergraduates prepare for showcases about their research, and hoping that they would win the big award at the end of semester symposium, right? And turns out they were using paper ballots. Terrible. If anybody has ever done this, you know it's awful. But I co-founded a company that digitize the scoring. This is a small problem, but impactful for a lot of organizations. And we ended up, starting with one science fair, one university, but scaling to universities around the world and lots of different kinds of competitions. So that was my first kind of experience of getting really curious and obsessed with a customer's problem. But I brought that same energy to my research, which was a little bit different. My background is in chemistry, but I was in an environmental engineering lab. So environmental engineering is really kind of a catch-all. And the lab I worked in was emerging contaminants, water quality, drinking water treatment, and waste remediation. And that's where I ended up, in waste remediation. I never thought that I would end up there, but that is, kind of how my research journey ended up taking me. But I brought that same kind of attitude. Well, if I'm going to work with waste, I want to be obsessed with it. I need to go and see. So I have a couple of shots here of going to utilities. I worked mostly with power companies to go and learn about their problems, which leads me to my favorite joke of all time, and you simply must indulge me because I have to do it. Utilities have a big ash problem. Thank you for laughing. That is very kind of you. So when we burn coal for power, we produce coal ash. The U.S. produces between 70 million and 130 million metric tons of this material every single year. And some of this ends up in concrete, where it makes concrete stronger. But sometimes it ends up in landfills, and this becomes a very expensive, billions of dollars for utilities to store, manage, and ultimately remediate when things go awry. But within this coal ash is a massive opportunity, because coal ash is enriched in rare earth elements. Now, if you've been following any of the news recently, rare earths have come up quite a bit. We need rare earths for tons of different applications: your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, consumer electronics, electric vehicles, wind turbines, fighter jets. Fighter jets aren't on my shopping list every month, but we need fighter jets, we need submarines, we need defense equipment. Rare earths play critical roles in all of these different technologies, and for most of them, there are no substitutes. So onshoring rare earth element production has been a huge national security priority. And you could say, well, let's just open up a new mine, and environmental consequences of mining fully aside, it takes 20 years to open a mine in the United States. 20 years. So onshoring is a huge, urgent priority now. So Rivalia has an elegant solution here. We're bypassing mining by harvesting rare earths from wastes already on the surface. So we're looking at coal ash, we're looking at a couple other kinds of wastes. But for coal ash in particular, the coal is burned, the ash is produced. We have our upstream processing step where we use a chemical process to pull out the ionic liquid. I'm sorry, we use an ionic liquid to harvest and purify the rare earth elements. The residual solid can go back into the existing market pathway for green concrete. So really kind of using all parts of the waste here. Really what we want to do, though, is go after the big legacy ash ponds. We are still burning coal. Less coal is being burned over time, but we've been burning coal for a long time, and there's a lot of waste in these massive ash ponds, estimated at 2 billion metric tons of material and billions of dollars worth of rare earths, provided that we can economically and scalably extract them from the ash. And that is the work we are doing here at Argonne. As they say, we are going from grams on the bench to tons in the trench. So I'm very excited to be here at Argonne, where we are tapping into the resources here to do that important scaling work. It has been so wonderful to be a part of this program, not just the equipment, but the talent pool, the engineers and scientists here, and as we hire and grow our company, the local ecosystem here in Chicago has been so friendly, not just for hiring purposes, but for fundraising and for meeting people connected in this space. So very grateful to be here and to be part of the Chain Reactions program. And with that, Rivalia is working on producing rare earth elements domestically, scaling that technology here at Argonne. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A or after this talk. I'll stick around for a bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. And next up, please welcome Dr. Sean Sullivan, CTO and Co-Founder of memQ.
Thank you, Dick. Great. So really excited to be here and share a lot of the exciting things that are happening in the state of Illinois when it comes to quantum technologies. And also our core technology, by the way, Laura, uses rare earth elements, so we should talk. So this year is UNESCO's International Year of Quantum. It's celebrating 100 years since the initial development of quantum mechanics. And I think it's really interesting to kind of take a step back in time to that period. Here in Illinois, in Chicago and the area around that, we were leading in manufacturing innovation in steel industry in particular. And my mother's family actually worked in the steel industry here in Chicago. So my great-grandparents, aunts and uncles worked at the U.S. Steel Southworks site, plant on Lake Michigan in South Chicago. About 10 years after that initial development of quantum theory, my grandfather joined the Southworks in the open hearth department, eventually going on to become a welder at Southworks. So these are photos of him. But I think it's really cool to also think that while he was working there, just a couple miles up the road at the University of Chicago, Enrico Fermi and other scientists of the time were really making key developments in quantum mechanics, putting it into practice and creating the first sustained nuclear chain reaction. And that would go on to form the basis for Argonne National Lab, the first national laboratory in the country. And since then, Illinois has been making key contributions to fundamental physics, quantum mechanics, and now a new industry is really taking root here in the state that seeks to leverage these unique properties of quantum mechanics and build useful technologies out of them. And one of the most famous versions of this is a quantum computer. So this is a new way of processing information using quantum mechanics. So as a regular computer, we think of it as having bits like ones and zeros. It's doing digital logic based on transistors. A qubit uses a quantum bit. It's a qubit, or a quantum computer uses a quantum bit or a qubit. And these have special properties. They leverage the core parts of quantum mechanics, superposition, entanglement, and interference. And they can be a 1 or a 0, just like a regular bit, but they can also be in combinations of 1 and 0 at the same time. And this unique capability allows them to process information in parallel much faster in certain ways than a regular computer. And they're very promising for simulating about our natural world, so simulating a quantum system with a quantum machine, and as well as finding new ways to really secure our data. But quantum computers have a problem in the sense that it's really hard to make a large-scale quantum computer where we have a useful number of qubits to really tackle these problems with utility. And so if we think about how we scale a regular computer, a supercomputer like the ones here at Argonne, like Aurora, what we typically do is we take a processor, like a computer chip that you can buy, and we take a bunch of these small modules and connect them together on a network. And then all of these small modules can work together in synchrony and act as one really powerful machine. But there's no way to do this for a quantum computer yet. There's no network that can support this quantum connection where the computers can talk to each other in their native language of quantum physics. And so that's what my company memQ is doing. We're working towards an extensible quantum network architecture that allows quantum computers to talk to each other. We're building key software and hardware components that sit in between two quantum computers and allow them to exchange quantum information over optical fibers. The work that got this started really started here while I was a postdoc at Argonne. I was in the material science division working on new qubits for quantum communication and working with a lot of researchers from the University of Chicago, including Manish Singh, who is now my co-founder. At the time, he was a PhD student at UChicago. And we decided to explore some of the commercialization potential of our research while we were here. And that led us to founding memQ. And we were very fortunate to get into the Chain Reaction Innovations program, participate in the Duality Accelerator program here in Chicago, which is the first quantum-focused startup accelerator. And since then, we've been plugged into the lab here. We're utilizing the cutting-edge facilities here at Argonne, have access to world-class researchers with a lot of deep expertise in quantum mechanics, work with Joe Hermans here in the material science division. We've also raised some venture capital, built out our team, and now we've deployed our technology on industry-standard 12-inch silicon wafers from a commercial foundry. That's the picture of one of our wafers there. We also have access to a really unique resource here that Argonne and around Argonne and Chicago. And this is a quantum communication network testbed that spans the metropolitan area and is really now extending to other areas. It's a really notable network because it's one of the first and largest of its kind in the country. And now it extends, I think, all the way down to UIUC, and it's continuing to expand. And I believe one of these future nodes on the network is going to be at that Southworks steel site, a little bit to the left, south on this photo. And that's because the state of Illinois, the federal government, and companies like PsiQuantum are investing huge amounts of resources into developing the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park, which is going to sit on the Southworks Steel site. This is going to be a state-of-the-art campus that's dedicated to quantum computing and quantum technology development. And I think what is really shaping up is that Illinois is becoming the perfect place to build a quantum company. We have key organizations like the Chicago Quantum Exchange, Intersect Illinois, Argonne and Fermilab anchoring the ecosystem, but we also have a deep and rich history and expertise in quantum engineering in the state. And I think it's really a testament to the advancing maturity of this industry that now this is requiring jobs that don't require a PhD. So to work in quantum engineering now, we need programmers, we need technicians, we need people with semiconductor manufacturing expertise and applications and business specialists. So stepping back in time, the steel industry was really at the forefront of innovation here in Illinois, in Chicago. My grandfather and his peers were building the physical infrastructure that helped shape modern industry. And now we have the opportunity to build the quantum infrastructure to help shape the next 100 years. And I'm really excited to do my part to help quantum computing scale and hopefully do it in the same place where my family once did. So thank you. I'm happy to talk quantum, stick around a little bit. But yeah, Sean from memQ, and we're connecting quantum so that quantum computing can scale. Thanks.
Please. All right. Laura and Sean, you guys have the coolest stories. Well, thank you for sharing that. And wasn't that really cool? So, yeah. And I have some questions, and we'll definitely want to save time for you all to ask questions. But just to get us started, Laura, what motivates you to start a company, right, and to mine rare earths from coal ash? And just tell us a little bit more about your motivation.
So when I started working on this in grad school, I just thought this was the coolest problem I could be working on. It has geopolitical intrigue. It has, fascinating chemistry. I work with ionic liquids, which are a class of chemical that are endlessly modifiable. I think there's 10 to the 23rd different ionic liquids. Like from a chemistry perspective, it really had the technical piece, the impact piece I was looking for. As far as starting a company, I spent some time after finishing my PhD working for the EPA, and they hired me to, write this report on what is the state of the art of rare earth element harvesting from waste, which is kind of funny because it's very rare that you get hired to do the exact specific thing that your PhD is focused on. But I realized that this was a missing piece. And if I wasn't going to build it, then no one else was going to build it. And we had the patent from when I was in school, and I was like, you know what, I want to give this a shot. I think this technology, should exist. I think the utilities care about this problem. And the first funding I raised was from a utility. So it's like, if you believe in this, then we can get this going. So yeah, it's always a challenge to do a startup, but I think when you believe the technology should be out there, then that is what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, and you said earlier too that that part of going all in captured your imagination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean, what about you? What motivates you?
Yeah, so I think for me it was quite similar in the sense that I really enjoyed the problems that, the scientific problem of a quantum device is super intriguing to me. I've always been fascinated by quantum physics. And so getting to do something useful with it, I think, is actually really appealing. The space that we were kind of thinking about when we were starting memQ was, we were thinking about it this way. In this, there were a lot of quantum computing companies that were really developing and becoming online is becoming quite a crowded space in a sense. So we were looking for ways to apply our technology that was a bit tangential, coming from a different aspect. And so we're not tied to any particular quantum computing technology, but we're enabling a new capability in quantum computing to really scale up and solve this bottleneck. And I think that was really appealing to me because it wasn't just like we're going to do the same thing that all these other people are doing. We're not going to just focus on building, a computer, but we're actually going to build something functional. And yeah, that really excited me.
Cool. And so you both live in this sort of intersection between science and technology, right? And you both went to graduate school, earned your PhDs, and I would love to hear what you've seen on this journey. How have you transitioned from being a PhD into an entrepreneur? What have you learned? What have you observed? What's similar? What's different? Let me start with you, Laura.
So I think scientists have a lot of skills that entrepreneurs need, especially for anybody who's if you've managed a project, you've managed a lab, then you know that science in practice is a lot more than just the actual technical piece, right? It's hiring, it's managing relationships, managing funding, managing partners, managing collaborators, the people part of that. I think my people skills have definitely grown in managing larger teams, more people, managing funding and different kinds of funding. I think a lot of research is typically funded by the government, but working with more industry partners now. I definitely talk to more lawyers now than I did as a grad student. But
that can be a
I'll
good
just
thing.
leave that one there, yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, I would say there are two key similarities that I've really noticed. That one that you might not appreciate is a thing that's needed for scientists, and that's in entrepreneurship, like you have to go and sell, but you also have to do that as a scientist, right? So you do have to, when you're going and trying to get funding or tell people that you think this is the right approach or that your idea is the correct thing, you're selling that idea in a sense. And that's, obviously a needed skill for entrepreneurs as well. The second, what was the second thing I was going to say? I think, the idea that oh man, I totally forgot.
Your first point was so good.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can go. I can come back to it.
Yeah, we can come back to it.
If I remember my second point.
Yeah, the entanglement. Yeah. Oh, I like that. But Sean, let's talk about entanglement. Sean, your thought made me think of Sean, your note earlier of, in science, we seek truth.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But I also think in entrepreneurship, we seek market truth,
yes.
right? And you mentioned, a crowded space, and in the end, the private sector and companies are looking for what consumers want, right? And did that bring your second point back?
That was exactly what I was going to say. You can apply the scientific method to the market discovery process. Instead of learning about the natural world, you're learning about the market, basically. And so I think that's a really valuable skill, to be able to ask the right questions in the right way, to collect data and dispassionately analyze it as much as possible to make decisions. Yeah,
and learn from it, right? I think as scientists, we rarely repeat the same experiment 30 times and failing it every single time. We learn something, we change the parameters, and we have a hypothesis, and we learn, and we improve upon it. Same thing for businesses, right? And that's the proverbial pivot that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
that was a big sigh. Oh. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your work here at Argonne. I would love for you to share, in any way that you can, the details, knowing that we're not all chemists and quantum engineers here. What do you do? And you mentioned ionic liquids. You mentioned rare earth elements. Can you walk us through the work that you're doing here at Argonne?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work here is mostly, for me, bench scale chemistry work. Synthesizing new and different ionic liquids. Some of them we can purchase, some of them we make, and applying those to our different waste samples, seeing what reaction conditions we can tweak, temperature, pressure, pH, to pull out the final, rare earth element product. Sometimes they need different pre-treatments. It's a lot of mixing chemicals in different size containers. But it's been really helpful here to be looped in here because the expertise I brought in my bench scale work in the lab or in my PhD was really, small scale. And for this technology to be successful, we need to go to, like I'm getting calls from utilities who are like, when can you process, 1,000 metric tons per day? And I'm looking at my benchtop system. Like, can I send you a ton? I was like, please do not ship me a ton of material, please. And, to go from a small, so I'm really glad to be, I'm in the process R&D and scale up lab. And the thing that this lab rocks at is, do you have a small process that needs to scale? So scaling is non-trivial. Right? Just because it works at this, small size does not mean it's going to work at, 1,000 metric tons per day, right? So it's been really helpful to work with the teams here to identify, what are those stopping points? Like what is the size that we can test with the equipment here that is also interesting to industry? Is that 500 kilos? Is it 50, and testing those. And it's been really helpful to work with the equipment and the engineers here on that.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Sean?
So I'm, in terms of scale, right, and size of things, like I'm the complete opposite
different.
end of the spectrum, right? So instead of tons and many meters, we're talking really, really tiny devices that we're making. But a lot of the work that we've done here at Argonne is to work on a technology called a quantum memory, and this is basically it's like a memory in a computer, but instead of storing a bit, it's storing a qubit, and what you can do with it is take a photon, a particle of light, catch it, and store it for some period of time, and then release it when you want to. That's needed for some of these quantum connectivity. But so we work with some of the advanced quantum labs here. There's a lot of cryogenics, so we have to cool things down to almost absolute zero. So basically the temperature of deep outer space.
That's very cool.
For 4 Kelvin. Sometimes you have to go even lower, like within tenths or thousandths of a degree above absolute zero, millikelvin temperatures. But it involves a lot of optics, like lasers and fibers and things like that. We make chips, so we take semiconductor chips, and then we deposit a material here at Argonne that has erbium, which is the rare earth element that we work with as our qubit, and we put it on those chips
we
here.
should talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there
But,
erbium in coal fly ash?
I don't think there's very much erbium in coal flash.
Well, maybe there'll be. But is it fair to say that Argonne, with its expertise and facilities, has been transformative for your companies?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are so many resources here, and I think the other thing about the Argonne community is everyone is so welcoming and so interested in what you're doing. So I'll be talking to someone, they're like, oh, so-and-so is in charge of this project that has this overlap. And it's just a really collaborative environment, which is really helpful. And also there's a really great program here. Oh, I'm blanking on the name now. I think it's called Minerals or Mines or something. But Argonne is a node for this huge Department of Energy program that's focused on domestic production of critical minerals, and rare earths are just a subset of this critical minerals. But being plugged into, kind of the place where it happens is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, similarly, I mean, I think the people have been the sort of, the best part, like working with these world-class scientists, the network that everyone has, like both within Argonne, but also connected around Chicago, around the country, has been really, really helpful. And then, of course, the technology, like these things, like it would be crazy for a startup to go buy, many millions of dollars of lab equipment to work on de-risking their technology, I think that's just not feasible for people working in like the hardware, like deep tech space. So this has been, it's been absolutely a cornerstone for our development for sure.
Great. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on why CRI and the Lab Embedded Entrepreneurship Program was created, right? To be able to leverage the public assets that we have here at Argonne, the facilities, the expertise. Anything I missed? Anything you want to bring up before we open to questions?
I wanted to second Sean's point. I mean, the idea that a startup could go out and buy, the millions of dollars of equipment that is on my personal wish list. Santa has not deigned to deliver me like an ICP or SEM, but having access to that is so hugely important for hard tech entrepreneurs, and there's just not really feasible ways for startups to access this without programs like this.
Yeah, and I think that leverage is real, right? And
Yeah.
also an important part of this program. And I work with the Argonne scientists, and in partnership, we mentor the innovators, and every year they tell us, this is an injection of new ideas, right? And you bring energy and excitement to the laboratory, and I think it's not a surprise that they want to connect you with their networks and to tell you what they've done throughout their careers in industry. And I think that's a really symbiotic relationship that, again, we're, as a lab, grateful for you innovators being here as well. So I think time's up, and so we're happy to take questions online and also here in the room. I believe there's a mic right in the back of the room, so if you have questions, please speak into the mic.
We have an online question to start off with. A couple questions about the new quantum and microelectronics park. When will offices start opening there, and will Argonne have any collaborations?
So I believe, I'm not probably the best person to answer this question, but I believe 2027 is when things will really start to open. And what I've heard is that there are active discussions. I don't know that I can confirm anything in particular, but I think Argonne is definitely contributing scientifically and to the facility development and things like that. And I'm sure there will be, active research.
And memQ will be active?
Yes,
as well?
yeah. memQ is definitely planning to participate, yeah.
It's an amazing site.
Yeah, I don't know about which office, but yeah.
It's a beautiful
It's going to
site.
be, it looks really nice.
Hi. So in addition to harvesting rare earth elements from coal ash, is there any work being done to also harvest uranium and thorium and other things like that? What about the things that aren't rare earth elements, and what do you actually do with those?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Rivalia is looking at a couple different kinds of waste, but for coal ash in particular, a lot of the radioactive material remains in the residual solid, which is what we want right now, right? Because we want to kind of leave the coal ash as kind of untouched as possible so that it can still be used in high performance concrete. One of the programs that I did through CRI was a customer discovery program. And so, I'm on the phone with these utilities. I'm like, can I take the rare earths out and then put the ash back into your ash pond? And they said, absolutely, under no circumstances will you be doing that. So it's really important that we kind of harvest everything out. I think, there could be a play to pull out aluminum. There's a lot of iron in coal ash that might be harvestable. These aren't really the highest value things. We think we can get the most value out of the leftovers, essentially, by putting it into concrete. The other benefit of that is, forming concrete kind of locks in any radioactive material that might be in there and makes it, dilute and safe. Great question.
Sean, I love the family connection between you and your grandfather. It's just so terrific.
Thank you.
My curiosity is two different mindsets and how you juggle those. When I was going to engineering school, I learned how to optimize trade-offs. And you always tried to optimize all your data. And then as I got into the world of science and innovation, it was the inventor who said, I want it all. I don't want to optimize, I want both and. And so to pivot my brain, or to pivot the looking at the problem and saying, no, I'm not going to trade off yet. I want it all. Have you had experience with that sort of challenge between the trade-off and the I want it all inventor?
So in quantum technologies in particular, or like in my journey, or? Yeah, I think, so I think what is really interesting, if on my slide, I think at the bottom I had this thing that showed it's called a qubit zoo, right? There are all of these different types of qubits out there. There's ones that are based on superconducting circuits. There's one based on atoms and ions, defects in crystals, all different kinds of things, and they're all good at different things. So we would like to have all of those, use them for all of their unique properties. Like some of them have very good coherence, so they can stay in their quantum state for a very long time, but they're very slow. Others are very fast, like if you're trying to do calculations very quickly. So that is definitely something that comes to mind, is like I would love to leverage all of these unique properties and get them to talk to each other in just the right way. But I think where we're kind of seeing the industry center around is something along those lines, but developing specialized processors, like just like we have a CPU, we have a GPU that's really good at training AI, we'll have specialized quantum processors that can sit alongside, a supercomputer, a GPU, and things like that, that can tackle specific elements of a problem that are amenable to the quantum part. So I think there is kind of a trade-off there, in the sense that you're picking a specific qubit type for a specific problem, and that's kind of where we're landing right now. That's a really good question.
A comment and then a question. I could have sworn that Herbie was the son of Herbie, a Disney yellow Volkswagen Bug. But putting that aside, that is my age maybe. My question is, on your opening slides, you talked a lot about U.S., 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 and typically scientists are hoping to publish, and by publish to the world. So my question is there a change taking place at Argonne and generally to try and keep some of the technologies we're developing for kind of a U.S. companies first before it's introduced to the rest of the world, keep it secret for a while, anything like that? Is there a change taking place? Because it seems like it's not to help the world, it's to help the U.S. is the message I thought I heard. But I know better than to think that, what's good for everybody is also good for us. So any comments?
That's a great question. And going back to that analogy I was drawing, the river of innovation, I think we do see two tributaries coming together, the basic research, the open science environment. I think that's a really important tributary that feeds into this river. But on the other hand, we also have this translational R&D that's driven by market pool. Right? And I think as we think about what Sean Jones, our deputy lab director, mentioned is science inspires, right? And I think that inspiration is, like you said, there's no boundary to national geopolitical boundaries to science, right? To how we inspire the next generation, how we're driven by curiosity. But at some point, that can meet this other tributary, right? As we turn that into market impact, right? And many of you here could be investors, could be entrepreneurs. You understand you got to build your company on something that's protectable, right? And I think there are probably many lawyers here. You think about intellectual property, and it's hard to fundraise if you can't have a cornerstone that you call your own, right? And I think as those come together, we'll have to figure out how to put those two together, and that's why it's messy. But I also think that's where life will thrive, right? As we figure this out, as we talk about maintaining our sort of heritage, but also looking into the future, how this comes together. I think that's really important, right? And Argonne will continue to be a beacon for science and innovation, and we're excited to also be able to nurture innovators along the way.
Great. I have another question online. This one's for Sean. Can you talk a little bit more about the linkage between chemical dynamics and quantum computing? Perhaps explain why quantum is so well suited for solving those problems.
Yeah, so again, this is not my specific area of expertise, but I can give it a try. So there's a type of way that we currently simulate molecules that it's called atomistic simulations. So we do things like these simulations on regular supercomputers right now, but we have to make a lot of approximations for how we think about the bonding between atoms and things like that. We take something that's inherently quantum. These are like wave functions of the electrons on specific atoms in the molecule, and they're evolving in time if you're doing time dynamics. And we make approximations for that to encode that information in a regular, digital computer algorithm. There's things like, it's called density functional theory. So in a quantum simulator, what the idea is you can use actual physical qubits, which are artificial atoms in a sense, to simulate the bonds between atoms. And you can either do one-to-one mapping of atom and atom, qubit, or you can do some other kind of higher level approximation. So what you're really trying to do is use a quantum machine to simulate a quantum system, which is a molecule, without having to make those approximations that we do currently.
That would make testing 10 to the 23rd ionic liquids maybe a little faster.
Maybe faster, hopefully faster, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully faster, yeah.
Doing it in silico.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Hello. Would you both be able to share a little more about your fundraising journeys and how those have impacted the development of your companies?
Yeah. So I started Rivalia out of a startup accelerator called Techstars. It's very similar to Y Combinator for those of you that are familiar with that. It's a little bit of venture capital, kind of seed funding to get you off the ground. I think they just increased the amount of money that, but it's in exchange for equity for your company. So it's something that as you fundraise, as you grow your company, you need to think about, well, how much money do I need to get to where I'm going? For me, I'm like, well, am I going to be building a $50 million refinery? That's something I have to take into account in my model of, if I give up this much equity here, how does that impact my play kind of down the road, right? Most of my fundraising outside of the Techstars money has been through grants. So National Science Foundation, SBIR funding, and Department of Energy funding.
Yeah, and so we got started through a program at the University of Chicago. At the time, it was called Compass. It was kind of an accelerator program, but at the end of it, you had this pitch competition thing, the George Shultz Innovation Fund. We won that and got into chain reaction innovations. But during that time, we'd also been talking to investors. So right shortly after we got into CRI, we raised a Series Seed round with some initial capital to build the team. So my co-founder and I expanded the team to 6 full-time people, all with PhDs. And then we have a few part-time folks. We've kind of sat at that level for, I guess, 2 years. We raised this 2 years ago. And yeah, really expanding the team kind of accelerated the development, especially like getting our technology onto commercial foundry chips. Like that's the part that really accelerated once we got the team grown, and getting someone with integrated photonics expertise who had worked in the industry previously, that was critical for us. But yeah.
Hello. Thank you for sharing your experiences today. I guess the question I have is, so how did you get into the program? Can you share your approach into getting into the CIR program?
Absolutely. So I think I applied when I was going through Techstars. So I think it helps to have some, momentum. For you, it sounds like you were coming off of that award. It's, you want to show traction, some, levels of progress in forming your idea and building a team. Trying to think if there's anything else in particular. There's a pretty clear application process online. And of course, I think I think there are office hours where innovators from the program kind of drop in and answer questions.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to. So I think each year we have a call for applications. In the fall, we open that up along with other programs that are part of the Lab and Embedded Entrepreneurship program, and we start with a technical review, and from there we invite the semifinalists to pitch to our reviewers, and from there we invite the finalists to come to Argonne for an in-person visit. I think it's always important for all parties to know what they're getting themselves into. And so it's a rigorous process, and we will gladly accept applications for our cohort 10 starting in the fall. So with that, please thank Laura and Sean again.